Welcome back, you guys. Yeah, save the best for the last. Is it like that? I don't know. We had a lot of highlights today, and this is our last panel. It's about sustainability. Sustainability has grown to be a major topic also here at Gamescom and also in the international games industry in general. Game makers not only address environmental topics in their games, they also started to act more sustainable as companies. Oh my God,
End of the day.
I got this. You're next, Deborah.
Oh no.
In our next panel, we will discuss this topic. Can games really make a difference here? And I'm super happy that I'm not the host of this panel. It's my lovely colleague, Deborah Mensah-Bonsu.
Thank you, Stephanie. Really nice to be here, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to immediately hand it over to Felix Falk here, who is the Managing Director of Game and the co-organizer of Gamescom, where we all are at. Yes, woo.
Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. And again, welcome to Gamescom again here, finally on site. And I want to talk a little bit about Gamescom Goes Green, because we as a games industry and we as Gamescom are front runner in many ways. And also when it comes to something which is not only important for the games industry, but for the whole world, which is climate. And we initiated Gamescom Goes Green. I want to talk a little bit about it, but before I do so, I want to show you in a survey we did already 3 years ago. So I think the numbers have grown already. But 3 years ago, we asked our members and the German games industry what they think about environmental and climate protection. And 80% believe climate protection is important, and already more than 3/4, 76% are involved in very specific projects for more sustainability. So that's, I think, a great result. And I think it develops to be even closer to 100%. And it was one reason for us why we did a lot as an association for the games industry. For example, this environmental guide where we give tips and best practices from members for the whole industry. You can download that on our website. Also something we did, and we will hear later from Sam about, is a fantastic initiative, the UN initiative Playing for the Planet and the games industry were developing together. It's called Playing for the Planet, so we are proud to be one of the first association members in this initiative. Also, all our institutions we do have as association are 100% climate neutral already, which is 2 foundations, one for esports, one for digital games culture, and DEFCOM here on Gamescom, and the USK Youth Protection, and of course we as Game as well. What is Gamescom already been doing many years? So a free public transport ticket that's included for years and years for everyone coming to Gamescom. Also event tickets from Deutsche Bahn. We have environmental friendly electricity production with in-house combined heat and power plant. We have a ban of single-use plastic, and since 2020, we have the Gamescom Forest. So the Gamescom Forest is a really great project because it shows something which is one of the strengths of the games culture, which is that many different fields and areas of the games culture work together to achieve something. So here, we as a games industry, as Gamescom, work together with our community, and we started with the Gamescom Forest to build a forest which has grown up to over 20,000 square meters in the quite close to Bayreuth in Germany, 5,000 trees, and we get donations for that. And we, in the beginning when we started, we said every euro from the community, we spend €1 as well, so to grow it, and that's a fantastic program we do together with our partner Dreamer. Now something new happened this year for the first time, and this makes us one of the first events of this size worldwide to have a complete climate program within Gamescom. So this consists of 3 different steps. So the first one is the core event. So everything before you come to Gamescom or anybody else comes to Gamescom, everything we as organizers together with Köln Messe, we provide will be 100% climate neutral. Either with reduction, like green energy, or with the possibility to how do you say in English, not compensate, but offset. Thank you. To offset the rest of it. So that's what we do with our partner, Climate Partner. And it's really all the events like this Congress, all the halls, all electricity, all driving, all material, people traveling, everything is included, also websites, all the digital stuff. The second one is the Gamescom Forest I was already talking about. So the visitors are invited to also contribute to this Gamescom Goes Green initiative with a green ticket they can buy, and many do, so it's really great. Also the digital participants worldwide, they can contribute. And the third one is also a voluntary contribution to climate protection by the exhibitors. So we invite them to also help this initiative. And what we want to do, and I think what's really important, is to educate, to tell others what we do. I mean, we are happy and proud that we are front runner, but we don't want to keep it as a secret, but we want to show what we learned and we are not in the end, so it's not called Green Gamescom, but it's Gamescom Goes Green, because we are in a process and we will learn from the future, hopefully also from others. And that's why we share our findings, because it makes it easier also for other events to learn from that. So what you see was quite interesting for us, because from the many fields, and this was, to be honest, one of the hardest things we had to do in this program, to actually find out what the carbon footprint is in a huge event like this. I mean, it's the world's biggest community festival for gaming. And so you see some areas we really digged in very deep into to find out where the carbon footprint lies into, where that happens. And we found out that 70% of at least what we are responsible for as organizers is energy. So that's a great finding, because it gives us the chance to understand where is the scalability, what actions will make the most difference in the future. So that's something we learned from this year, and we will carry on the next years to make it even better. And I'm really happy with this initiative, Gamescom Goes Green. We also connected it to make it very transparent, so you can go on the Gamescom website, and in the footer you will see how it works. You've got a certificate from our partner, and you got all the information on the projects. I will only briefly mention. So 2 main projects we do with our offset we are supporting, which is wind energy in Brazil, which also helps in other sustainability goals. And the second one is clean and safe cooking in Nigeria. Together with the Gamescom Forest, wind energy, and also from social aspects, this project, I think this is a nice start. And the last thing I want to mention is how we tell people. With this award, for example, we first time introduced a Gamescom Goes Green award, and we set the stage in our huge opening show, Gamescom Opening Night Live. We put that on stage and gave the award to Yuki when Microsoft and Indie Arena booth were nominees as well. And we didn't decide who that would be ourselves, but Sam and his team, they did from Playing for the Planet initiative. And if you want to know more about it, you should visit the Yuki booth, because they did great things this year all around climate protection. So that's a brief overview, and if you've got more questions, ask me. I'm really excited about this project, because we have with games and the games industry, we have such a great importance, as you can tell, visiting the different panels at this Congress and knowing yourself. But with, as you know, Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. So we are aware of that, and that's why we do things like this. And I hope you like it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Felix. Next up, we're going to hear a little bit from Sam Barratt from UNIP about Playing for the Planet.
Great. Nice to see you all. What I wanted to do, if it was okay, is just do a quick show of hands. So hands up if you're doing a lot on sustainability. Is this something that you're doing loads on? Hands up if you're doing a bit on it, so started. Hands up if you haven't yet started. Okay, great. So what I wanted to do, for those that you who are halfway, some ideas about what more you can do. For those of you who are just about to start, where you can begin. So this summer was hot. Do we all agree on that? And sadly, it's just going to get hotter and hotter unless we do something about it. And I think what Felix was talking about what we've seen with Gamescom, is something that we all should be doing everywhere. And I don't think there's an opt-out on climate change. It will affect everyone, everywhere, unequally. So those that can afford air conditioning may be okay. Those that can't will be less so. And in poor countries where it's harder to escape this, it's going to get tougher. So I just wanted to talk about Playing for the Planet, just briefly. This is an initiative that started 2.5 years ago. We've got now 43 members and some of the biggest studios in the world. The conversation started with Jim Ryan from Sony, who wrote to Phil Spencer to say, normally we're mortal enemies, but on this agenda, I'm sure we can agree. And that collaboration between Sony and Microsoft, I think, was fundamental, that brought more people into the initiative so we can move away from competition, which is what the gaming industry does very well, to collaboration, to think about, on this shared challenge of climate change, what can we all do? And these are brilliant members that are all playing a different part on this agenda. And in the past 2.5 years, I think we've made a good start, but I think there's still a long way to go. So what are we trying to achieve? And I think it's really 3 things. One is we are trying to reduce the emissions of the gaming industry. It's very hard to really establish, as Felix said, where do your emissions stop and start if you're hardware and software, but we're looking to create tools so you can work out what is your scope 3, so your gamers' emissions. 95% of all the major studios' emissions are scope 3, which is how their players play. What we need to do is help them measure that and reduce it rather than offset it, because offset should be the action of last resort rather than first resort. We're also doing a big project around activating gamers with the Green Game Jam. My son Jimmy, who's 13, I know how much he plays a range of games, and I can see how gaming is no longer just about play, but it's about socializing, it's about spending time with friends, and the dynamic in games has changed dramatically. We see gaming as having a superpower that no other medium on the planet has, which is engagement and activation to transform people's understanding and possible behaviors on different issues. So we really see gaming as being unique, and it can do things that no other medium can. We're also looking to grow the initiative, and I think at the moment we've got 41 studios, 42, and we're looking to keep building that, and we're doing pretty well. So one of the big things which I mentioned is the Green Game Jam. And over the past 3 years, we started with this concept of just working with mobile studios, and Deb played a massive part in this, and Lisa, who works with us. And it's grown to include both console, and now we've got up to 42 studios. What we think is we need to work with the big games, with the big audiences, to get environmental messages mainstreamed throughout the industry, and to get people who work in the development of games to think about what can they do differently. And I think what we're trying to do is shift the culture and the norms inside studios to think about how they could all make a choice on this. And really, we're seeing some amazing results. And we're going to hear more on that from Nicolas from Ubisoft. We've also not giving any studios a free pass. So when you join, you have to make specific commitments. Each year, we ask how you've done. Then each year, we ask you to do more. Last year, we had 50 actions of different shapes and sizes take place, which is great. we're really working with the industry on getting them to think about how they can work through on new commitments on decarbonisation and getting new guidance on Scope 3. And other industries are watching the gaming industry to see how they can learn. Music being a big part of that. And we're spending time helping the music industry learning from gaming so they can build out what they've started. And another idea that's coming, which I think is really good, is from Sega on plastics. I think plastics will disappear as a result of the digitization of gaming, but there's still a big issue with plastics and some new ideas around how we create product in a different way, which is coming together. I think we all know this. Time really is not our friend on this. And this isn't a next year, maybe issue. It's a now issue. And I think this summer, when I drove through Italy, I saw trees in a shape and state that I've never seen before. Old oaks down the road from where I normally go on holiday were looking terrible. I saw when I drove back through France, wildfire smoke covering the motorway. And then when I was in the Alps, I saw glaciers that I used to know no longer looking the same. And so I think this quote from Bill McKibben, I think really summarizes the spirit that we need to bring to this, which is winning slowly on climate change is just another way of losing. And so what we're trying to do is help people win fast. And so what I think is important from this is UN Environment is facilitating leadership from the industry. We all know that it kind of can capture 2.7 billion eyeballs, but what we think it can do, which is its superpower, is transforms people understanding to activation. And I think what our role is to really kind of get the industry to really think about what it can do differently. So I think I'll leave it there and just say a massive thank you to Felix at Gamescom and DevCom for the door that was thrown open to us to work with them on a range of initiatives. But also, I would say our role at UNEP is to work with you to help you do the right thing. And I would also say, finally, it's very easy to be nervous about getting it wrong and to not quite know where to begin. But the first step is the most important step. And when you start to walk, you can start to jog, you can start to run, you can start to sprint. So I feel everyone can play a role, and we really think that the gaming industry is a really critical partner in this fight. And we look forward to seeing what more we can do together. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sam. So now we're all going to get together and have a little chat. And I think there is one more slide. There are a lot of people up here, just so you can see all of their wonderful names and titles. But maybe the slide is not there. That's OK, too. And I didn't actually introduce myself properly, really. So I'm the founder of Games for Good. And I consult with studios and industry on social impact in games. And I also work with Sam on Playing for the Planet. And beside me here, I have Felix Falk, who is, we know, the managing director of Game. And then we have Michael Kellner here in the middle, who's the Secretary of State. And he works in the Cabinet of Economy and Climate Change. And then Sam, you've already met. We have the lovely Jennifer Estaris, who's joining us from UsTwo Games. She's a game director there. And then last but not least, we have Nicolas Hunsinger, who runs all of the sustainability programs at Ubisoft. So we just heard Sam talk a little bit about, some of the impact that he's seen personally while he was, vacationing in Italy, et cetera. And I know for myself as well, even though I work in the space and I've been doing it for a few years, I think it wasn't really until this past summer where we've had these heat waves that I had that aha moment where normally I love the heat, and where my friends, might cower away from the heat, I'm like, no, it's great. But this summer, I just felt like I couldn't get away from it. And that little bit of, fear set in where I thought, oh my gosh, I can't really escape this, and it's only going to get worse. So I was just going to ask the panel here if any of you have had that aha moment where you felt, oh, this is actually real. Like, I feel this now. I can feel this personally. And you don't all have to answer, but if you all have an answer, then feel free. And who would like to go first?
Deborah, I can add, what you said about the summer. This year, I was in the rural area, north of Berlin, and usually I would say the same, summertime. And this time I was really, really happy when there was 2 days of raining, because it was such a drought. And then I thought for the first time, rainy weather in summer is good weather. And I never thought about that in the last couple of years when I had summer and, having a few days off. But I wake up at night and was happy because it was heavily raining.
Yep, definitely. Anyone else? I see Jen nodding.
Yeah, I agree definitely about us feeling that heat. I'm part of another group called the IGDA Climate SIG, where we had a roundtable very recently, and one of the members, a couple of the members, started worrying so much. They're living in the global south, and they were worried about, do I have the capability to not just continue to develop games, but to stay where I live? I might have to move very soon. And the fact that this is their worry, and it's beginning to touch us, we should start activating because we're already behind. So my aha moments happen all the time, but that one really rang true with me.
Nicolas?
No, obviously, I observed the same. I traveled from Austria to France, and you can really notice the difference, the short-term difference when you're looking at the forest in France. In Alsace, everything's very dry. You know, just a match can light the whole forest up, and that's really concerning. But you also realize, I also had a look at the glacier of the Großglockner in Austria, and you notice it's not something that started this summer. It's been going on for 50 years, 100 years. And when you look at the glacier, they write every year the level of the glacier, and when you go down, you go back. I mean, you travel back to the present, because at the highest part of the glacier, it was maybe 50, 100 years ago. And it's weird to see this happening for so long, and so little have happened. And I really hope that this summer again will raise awareness and make everyone understand that we can all play a part to change things as soon as possible.
That's great. And, well, speaking of, it's not all doom and gloom. We are here, hopefully, to also inspire change and bring a little bit of hope. So today we're going to chat a bit about sustainability in games from 3 different angles. We want to talk a bit about industry initiatives, like the one that Felix and Sam have touched on with Gamescom Goes Green. And then we also want to look at the studios themselves and how you can sort of try to make change or drive change within those different levels, even within a studio or within a publisher or a group of studios. And then we'll also look at the games themselves and what kind of change you can drive within your teams. And then we want to talk about the players too, because they are a big part of that, and we're going to come back to that piece too. So first off, like I said, we've just heard from Sam and Felix about this really great collaboration between different initiatives within the industry. And so I wanted to throw the first question to you both. What other collaborations do you think would be interesting that you have not seen yet, or that you would hope to see that you think could drive this agenda further?
Sam has everything in his book, I guess.
He's got his notebook ready. He's like, oh, I've got an answer.
It's full of ideas, I guess.
Yeah.
Within gaming or within other parts of culture?
Within our industry, yeah. So, we've seen Gamescom and P4P come together, but what other collaborations are there maybe that you would love to see?
I mean, I'd say a couple of things. One is, I think we want to find a channel for gamers to have a stronger voice about what their expectations are. And I think that can drive change in industry. I do a lot of work with students and universities. Universities are very conservative. They don't like changing very much, but empowering students to have a voice can shift the norms within universities. And I think the same can happen with gamers and games companies. I also think that the accountancy that we're seeing in the cloud to make sure that AWS and Google and Azure are helping companies understand the carbon consequence of gaming in the cloud, so people have the same maths coming out of the system would be quite helpful. And I think that's a quick fix. I don't think that should be difficult. And my last point would be, I think esports is interesting. We don't have the bandwidth to really kind of get involved in esports. But I think the way that celebrity and influencers and some of the great names in esports could get involved would make a massive difference. So I think there's some areas that are really untouched, and there's more that we could do. But the challenge we have is not opportunity, but choice selection. So we're just trying to kind of think about how we shift the norms within this sector. Then one by one, we'll think about what else we can do. So
yeah, those are great points. Now, something you'll notice about Sam, the more that you hear him speak, is he always has 3 points. Everything comes in threes, and it's really valuable because then you really take it away and remember it, And what about you, Felix? 3 points?
I might add one because for my feeling, it's not the question that somebody should wait for the great idea nobody had before, but it's all there, or most of it. We have so many best practices, and that's why we did the guide. That's why we are transparent on our results, and that's why the annual report of Playing for the Planet is so important, because if you're interested, you just need to see what the idea is and how it works in other companies. So in the German games industry, it's also important because we have mainly small and medium-sized companies. So all the small companies, of course, I do understand that if they have a team of 5 or 10 people, they don't have, they're not as lucky as Ubisoft to have a dedicated person. So we can inspire them to say, look, what Ubisoft does, you can do it immediately. You don't need to look around, but just do it, and if it works for you, and this makes it scalable and makes us move much faster if we do so.
And you just mentioned Nicolas and him being the lucky person who gets to do it for all of Ubisoft. But I know we've had lots of conversations about the challenge that can be as well. So can you talk a little bit about the different kind of levers you have to try to push and pull within all those different levels of a studio the size of Ubisoft? Like, what does that take? How do you approach it? And how do you try to make change there?
I think the first thing which is really important is how you turn, this awareness of what's happening right now and turn it into something positive and constructive, make it a driver for people to change. When I'm talking to our teams, whether it's game developers or people in support functions, they care. They want to do something. But most of the time, they spend it at work. So for them also to turn this awareness, this consciousness, maybe this anxiety sometimes, into something positive in the workplace, that's something fundamental to understand. And it means that you need to embed sustainability in the business. You need to understand what the job of those people is, how this job can contribute to a carbon reduction objective, or to our Ubisoft objective to raise players' awareness. And it's fantastic. The moment you start the discussion with the people, they're like, oh, I can do this and I can do that. And here, I'm just here to drive this energy towards the right direction, because sometimes people can be a little bit overwhelmed with everything they can do, and make it relevant, making sure that they select the right topic depending on their job, of their time, etc. And I think it's working well, and we're doing this at all levels of the company. I don't know where it started in the beginning, I must say. I think it was a moment in time where the board of directors' ambitions regarding sustainability met the grassroots initiatives of our staff, and poof, and it works. But then my job also now is to fuel this momentum on the long term, because it's a journey. It's not something you will achieve from one day to the other, but it's the same in any other company or in society in general.
So do you think a lot of it is sort of finding those moments, where there's like this catalyst for change, and if you grab the moment and you can ride it, you can really make a difference?
Yeah, there is no one solution. You really need to understand your staff as you understand your players. Players have so many different motivations to play a game. And that's why it's also very fascinating to embed sustainability and environmental themes in the games. Is that some people, they want to understand, some people, they want to fight, some people, they want to, just feel emotions regarding climate change. And that's where we can play a very complementary role with other type of medias. We all have, our triggers, our emotional triggers. And at Ubisoft, we are very happy to have a huge portfolio of brands and games that can trigger
all those different
things.
Yeah. And I see Jen vigorously nodding along.
No, I love it because it's what we do. We're gamers. We think about the strategy. That strategy is diversify out your different ways of, not attack, but different ways of addressing the problem. The other thing I like is when, Deborah, you talk about, and I feel like it's Playing for the Planet, you must have at least 2 people, or it's ideal to have 2 people in your organization that can push for this change and join Playing for the Planet and do the Green Game Jam. So that's a strategy that's worked for for me. And
Yeah, because I think it can be really, we've all talked about the overwhelm and the kind of fatigue that comes with some of the work that we do. And so when you have somebody else who's kind of running that race with you, I think it's really, really important. So to find, I always call it like finding your champions within a studio, within an organization, et cetera, so you can kind of cover more ground together.
yeah, and finding your community too.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
That's what's so wonderful about Playing for the Planet, is that you get to interact with other game studios and then share the knowledge and share the practices and get better always.
And can you tell us a bit more about sort of your approach, as working with the games and actually trying to implement some of these things within your titles? And when I say something like green design, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's one of my favorites right now. So I'll start.
Oh, I got that term from her. I'm just throwing it back at her.
I'm making it happen. It's easy. It's easier at us 2 Games because we are a purpose-driven company. We're a B Corp, et cetera. But one of our most recent games, Alba Wildlife Adventure, we have a nice experience where every time someone buys a game, we also plant a tree. We've planted over 1 million trees so far. And this game, it's about taking photos of birds, and it's exploring the beautiful island of Spain. But what it's really about is taking down a corrupt hotelier from building on a nature reserve. And it's all done by this little girl. So I like to think of it as the Greta Thunberg trainer. And it's that sort of nonviolent direct action that we need to do as well. Like, again, all the different strategies, let's just try to put them in and have them in our games as themes. But one of the things we were talking about earlier, Deborah, about green design, is how can we start at the source and try to have content in the game that is about reducing or transforming cultures and reducing our impact. But also, how do we think about things like performance and server load? For example, we chose to not do a game that was multiplayer just so that we could reduce the energy use. And I think this is a callback to Arnaud Fayol's. He works at Ubisoft. It's called the Game Design Toolkit. And there he has a lot of guides as to different ways you can approach changes in your game that aren't just about, let's make the game about nature. It could be some other ways to make it more climate friendly.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, we also want to throw it over to Michael here, who is center stage. When we talk about this whole kind of concept of decarbonization and the sort of responsibility that lies with studios, how far away do you think we are from something like regulation from the governmental side? Like, is the voluntary contribution from studios, is that enough? Or do you think at some point, well, actually, we're going to have to regulate this and the conversation is going to change and more people will have to be on board?
Well, to be honest, we have a regulation, that's the Paris Climate Agreement, and we all have to fight for to achieve this goal. And yes, I mean, we in a society need certain regulation, like efficiency standards or how to switch to green energies, to give some examples. But the interesting question is, for me as politician, of course, we need to have good rules for our society, and I love it when if the community helps to fulfill these games. If you, Sam, talking about community engagement, that's great. And I'm thankful for everyone who helps. But for me as a politician, we need to have good rules in our society. And I mean, what I mean with that, at least in the last couple of months, we were working very hard in Germany to get one of the biggest package for renewable energies through the parliament. We succeeded, and then the new aim is to having 80% of green energy by 2030. And that's the job we have to do as politics. To having rules to make it more efficient to change to green energies, to make it less bureaucratic to change to green energy. So they help to having good rules. And then I'm thankful for everyone who is helping, being an individual or being in a community or being a company. But in a way, politics is there for having the rules and not just, say, you as an individual, you have to solve this question. You, Felix, have to solve it with your behavior, or you, Sam, or whatever, or you, Deborah. But, we have the rules in a society that we can reach the Paris Agreement, and therefore politics is there.
And I think that's a really good point, just what you said about, like the individual versus the role of government. And when we talk about our player base and the power of our players, like, yes, we want to change hearts and minds so that they can take action, but how much of that, again, like responsibility kind of falls to the individual versus...
Well, I'm thankful for every individual who's few examples in gaming, maybe who switch off to standby or may change the energy she or he uses to green energy, or even maybe if it's possible, put a solar panel on the rooftop. Great. I'm thankful for every effort, but still, the individual alone cannot solve the planet, and it's not, it's not privatizing. We are not allowed to privatize climate change to every single one in the room. Say, you, and you. No, it's in our society we need to have the rules that's possible. Like for instance, to getting in the midterm rid of dirty coal and replacing it by clean energy. It's one example. And that's not only done by every single one, but it has to be done also by politics and having clear rules. And that's where politics is for. And then I'm thankful for everyone who's helping, who's moving forward, who's mobilizing. But in the end, I just, in my perspective, sometimes if politicians say you have to do it, then it sounds like we give it away, we privatize it, and not aiming by ourselves for this goal. So that's important, I think.
And Felix had something to throw into that as well.
Yeah, because if we talk about what government can do, poor Michael has to deal with industries which are, it's a very long way to get there where we need to go. And we as a games industry, we are dynamic, we are young, we are digital, so we can move much faster, and we don't want to wait for the government to tell us what to do, but we are able to do it ourselves because we see the values in it. And I just to give one example, next to the great examples for you guys and many others, but for Microsoft, for example, they not only agreed on being climate neutral until 2030, but to become climate positive until 2050. They want to be climate neutral since the beginning of Microsoft. So they go back to all the carbon, to be climate positive, so they reduce all the energy all the emissions they did in the past.
Yeah.
So that's something I guess for other industry that's nothing you could ask for right now, because it's a different situations they are in. But for us, we are able to move quicker, and that's not only a question of values, but also, for example, the question how to attract talent, because the young generation we try to attract for our industry, they are value driven. They ask for a purpose, and they want to work for a company who is thinking about things like this. So also in our interest as industry is important that we are good in these questions and to take actions.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really great segue actually to that point about the player base. And I think just as much as you said, attracting talent, people want to work at a place that has purpose, that's value driven. It's the same for players. I think more and more players are becoming socially conscious, and they want to play games that speak to their values, right? And if that game doesn't have it, well, I'll go over here and play this one. So even though we're all, our hearts are all in this, there is also a business case to be made for, of course, taking this approach with your games and with your studios. And when Nicolas and I were chatting yesterday, he made a really good point, and he said, it's great, we're having this panel, look at all these lovely people represented, but the people who are not represented here are the players. Like, where are they? Where is their voice? So I wanted to, ask some of you, where do you think the gap is between this conversation and the conversation that the players maybe are having, but we're not really hearing it yet, and how do we bridge the gap so that we can actually hear their voice better? It's up for grabs. You can start, Nicolas.
No, I think personally and at Ubisoft, we're only thinking about our players and how everything we do, including our sustainability strategy, can create value for them. They are the key stakeholder of our industry. Without them, there is no business, no game, no nothing. But it's true that we haven't yet engaged enough with them. And I think it's because we still need to work hard to really assess, understand the global carbon footprint of gaming. And that's still a work that needs to be done. It's a collective effort. And with this regard, I really thank the Playing for the Planet Alliance for fueling this discussion among different parts of the value chain. And more importantly, we still need to walk the talk. So we've all grown in our desire and knowledge to change and to be more sustainable. That's fantastic. Now we need to do it. And then I'm sure the players will be much more open for us to reach out to them. And as Herr Kellner mentioned, maybe to ask them to switch to a renewable contract energy. Then I think they will listen to us.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, like you said, walk the talk. Anyone else have any thoughts on the player piece?
I mean, I agree. Like, we need to just reach out to them more. We do a lot of play testing, but I think there's something to be said about getting all the diverse voices, especially Global South voices. And not that my team is quite small; it's about 5 of us, but we're quite ranging in spectrum. We have like me and Filipina, British Indian. We have Chinese. We have a woman who is, I believe she's Vietnamese, Arab, who grew up in Sweden. So it's a really nice, diverse group. And then you get those voices that are underrepresented. But I do agree that as diverse as that is, and in fact, we had to hire someone who was a white cis male because we didn't have any white cis males on our team. But as diverse as that is, we still don't have a representative for someone who is from the places that are, in fact, being hit on by climate change already. And how do we get that voice represented? And we're just going to have to make sure we consciously take the effort to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. Sam, or?
I think on the gamer piece, maybe next year, Felix, at Gamescom, we could do a lot more with gamers here, just about where they're at on their journey, what choices they're making, what more could be done. So I think there's a lot we can do with touch points in spaces like this. Like there's a whole opinion poll out there waiting for us to kind of put questions to them. So I do think events are a perfect place where audiences of all different types, shapes and forms can be engaged. So I do think, let's think about that off the back of this week.
Yes, 300,000 people here, it's it's the perfect place. Yeah.
And just to build on that, I think just for those in the audience who have started the journey but still want to go further, sometimes the best thing you could do is just ask a question. And it's just asking the question that opens up people to be forced to think about what is the answer. Then once the answer is not good enough, then you've got the opportunity to say what more you think you could be doing. So sometimes I think the question, rather than the statement, is the first place to begin. And the more questions you ask, the more you are in just terms of listening and understanding where people are on that journey and working with them, as opposed to making assumptions about where you want them to be and then realizing they're nowhere near where you think they are. So I do think the power of questions is really important and a good place to begin.
I just wonder with Michael, actually, because, kind of trying to take learnings from one industry to, well, not industry, but to another. As a politician, you're someone who sort of has to have their, their finger on the pulse of what people want, what they care about. Is there anything that you think we could learn from, from your role and from what you do in reaching out to people, understanding their needs and the kind of actions that we need to take for them?
Well, first of all, I like, you told the story about Microsoft, right, and their goals, or Ubisoft, we heard yesterday and today. But I think as the game association as a whole, every company, every branch, we need a transition path. At least you said, well, there are other industries who are much lagging behind. But for instance, like the steel industry, huge, they're much bigger in the CO2 emissions, but even they decided, all of them, you're having a transition path. And I think it's good. I mean, I like the idea of Gamescom Goes Green, because Gamescom go screen is a process, right? It means we are not there, and so it's a way we have to go, and we need to include the players, and that's good if you try to include all the players, and next time talk to them and hear their voice and let them act. But I think it would be good if all together as a Gamescom Congress and all the actors there say, we want to agree on a Paris Agreement, we want to reach it, and that's our steps. We all want to go. It's not only Ubisoft, not only Microsoft, but in a way, everyone has to go this way, and everyone has to be included. And that's one thing I think would be great for having as a next step. Everyone agrees on it under the leadership by Felix, and everyone agrees. Okay, we're going this way, and
then the people vote.
We will be there in 2040. We will have reached that. That's the spirit we need in the next years, because that's true. What you said, we need to be faster. We need to be faster, and that's in every aspect.
And for you, Felix, I mean, you are somebody who's literally like surrounded and entrenched in players and gamers all the time. Is there anything from your side where you think, this could be a great way to connect with them or have their voice heard?
Well, I'm not surrounded by players most of the time, because I'm, as association, working with.
I don't mean literally surrounded.
Okay, I mean I'm surrounded
not
at
like
home.
at your home all the time.
At home, but I mean I'm more a multiplier and someone working with the industry. But to have a opportunity with Gamescom, the biggest festival for games worldwide, of course we wanted to use this. And when we're talking about Gamescom Goes Green, we started with the Gamescom Forest already 2020, and many players joined us with this, and from the start we said we can only do it together. So that's why we did €1 from us, €1 from you.
Yeah, I love that.
And to always say there's nobody who can do it for you. You have to, join the forces, and that's our possibility. And I really like the idea to do even more. I mean, it's hard sometimes because the players just want to enjoy games when they come here. But that's why initiatives like from you to combine the experience within the games with the most important questions of our time is so important, because people want to enjoy games because it's how they see the world, and it's it's about problems they have in daily life, and it's a mirror of what they do. So of course something like climate change should be in there, and if it's done really nicely, that it activates you, that forces engagement and everything, that's the best way to discuss and to make these problems visible.
Yeah, I love that. The questions of our time. Yeah, that's really good. I think we're almost out of time. Speaking of, I see the clock now, 15 seconds. So I just want to thank everybody on the panel. Thank you so much for all of your different perspectives and viewpoints. It's been a really interesting chat for me, at least.
Thank you for hosting.
Thanks, Deb.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's one last part.
Don't forget.
Michael Kellner is going to give us the closing notes.
Well, actually, you did it so perfectly. Thank you very much. It's a bit hard now.
Now Stephanie in the back, she's smiling. She's like, she messed up too. Amazing.
Actually, they asked me to wrap up the discussion, but I'm not sure. So, but no, thank you very much. And I like the discussion. I like the idea of Gamescom is going green or goes green, and I think it's. As Felix showed an hour ago, you started the way, and I think it's really good to know that the parts of Gamescom organized by Games and the Köln Messe are climate neutral. That's a big step, and thanks for that. And those emissions who could not be prevented were offsetted, as you explained in the beginning. But of course, we all know that's just one part of all the emissions which belong to such a convention. And all these emissions who are the traveling emissions by every one of us, coming here, is also, is also part of course, the CO2 emissions of Gamescom. And don't get me wrong, I mean, after 2 years of Corona, it's so important that we can meet personally again. I mean, I had the whole time, I was smiling the whole day because it's so nice to meet. And I think it's also important for business. It's also important to create new ideas, also for tackling climate change. So we need to meet each other. So we need to tackle also these questions about, carbon footprint by traveling. We need to tackle this as well in the next years. And therefore, let's work together with that. And I mean, Sam, I really liked what you talked about, community organizing. I mean, it's an important step. I mean, it's not what we politicians should not wait that the community is organized, but we should help to, and we should fight and we should set the rules right. But it's really helpful that that playing for the planet. It's a very nice idea. I love it, and I think it's good that we have it. And I thank you for all the work you spent there and you creating that and co-findings and supporting it. I think it's a great tool that will help the game industry to greatly reduce their carbon footprint, because we talk about industry, and it had reduced the carbon footprint, even has to be zero. And therefore, we're still on the way there. And I thank Jennifer and I thank Nicolas, and that provided very good examples. You are front runners. You're showing what is possible. And of course, Deborah, you were a moderator, but you're also organizing the Green Game Jam. You also show what is possible and what's on the way there. And I think that's very, very good examples you show us. And I'm glad that we had the opportunity to share this on this stage today. But I cannot help to explain that we also see some problems. Also in the last days, we see that the new PlayStation 5 or the new Xbox has even a higher maximum power consumption. So need more energy. We need more energy in the cloud computer gaming, which we're developing there. So we need more renewable energy, but we also need to be more efficient with energy. That's also a question for the game industry who needs to be addressed. And the game industry, yes, shows a lot of responsibility, but there's also a way to go. And this is it's not the only thing. If you talk about sustainability, it's also a question about social responsibility. And let me at least say that I'm glad that you're working on diversity. We're all working on diversity, also in the gaming industry, in politics. It's a way to go. I'm really thankful for the gaming community that they helped a lot of colleagues from Ukraine. Let me also stress that. I think it's important to say in that times. And I also see that the social responsibility is part of sustainability, and also the kind of working conditions which getting much better than the last decades. So let's work to use games, the potential of games, to make the world a better place. But don't forget, games is about fun, right? And that's games should enjoy. And let me say that even in these quite dark days, it's good sometimes just to play for a couple of minutes and to relax and to enjoy. And so I mean that's also part. And don't forget that, please, this being part of the industry. And as I said, and Gamescom goes green, gaming industry goes green. Germany has to go more green, and so it's a way we all have to go. We have to be faster. I will stress that, and I will be happy if also in the next year and in the years to come with Gamescom, we're talking again and again about these questions, how we tackle climate change, but because we need to win this fight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, you guys. Das war's. Das war's. Das war der Gamescom-Kongress 2022. Und Dirk, du bist hier.
Ich darf auch noch mal kurz auf die Bühne.
Ja.
Nachdem ich die ganze Zeit quasi nur im Internet war, bin ich auch noch mal hier. Also schönen guten Abend an alle hier. Ich hoffe, ihr hattet Spaß und einen genauso schönen Gamescom-Kongress, wie wir es hatten.
Ja, wir hatten definitiv sehr, sehr viel Spaß. Falls ihr noch mal nachschauen wollt oder uns auch Feedback geben wollt, schaut doch mal auf dem Hashtag GCC22 vorbei. Da freuen wir uns immer über Input. Und ja, wir sehen uns im nächsten Jahr wieder. Aber was wäre denn eine tolle Veranstaltung ohne ein paar dankende Worte? Und die möchten wir gerne richten an ganz besondere Menschen, die hier mitgearbeitet haben. Danke an alle Rednerinnen und alle Gäste. Danke, thank you so much. Danke, dass ihr bei uns wart und hier über so wichtige Themen sprecht. Besonderer Dank geht auch nochmal an Irina und Nika, die extra aus Kiew hier nach Köln zu uns zur Gamescom gereist sind. Danke auch an die VeranstalterInnen des Gamescom-Kongress, an den Game e.V., der Verband der deutschen Gamesbranche, und an die Köln-Messe. Vielen, vielen Dank.
Unbedingt. Applaus vielleicht an der Stelle nochmal schon mal für diejenigen und viele, die vielleicht auch mal vergessen werden in so einer Dankesrede. Natürlich hinter den Kulissen sind unheimlich viele an der Organisation hier beteiligt von so einem Event. Ich glaube, sie sind auch gleich nochmal eingeblendet oben auf der Leinwand, sehen wir dann im Abspann quasi. Auch an die, vielen lieben Dank an die ganze Organisation, an die Menschen in der Technik, die das umgesetzt haben und natürlich nicht zuletzt an die Zuschauerinnen und Zuschauer da draußen, die das hier im Internet mitverfolgt haben, denn natürlich ist der Kongress hier vor Ort, aber wir haben ja diesen schönen digitalen Raum auch wieder mitgedacht. Und jetzt gerade haben mehrere tausend Leute gleichzeitig hier bei diesem Programmpunkt zum Beispiel zugesehen. Das kann man sich im Saal dann immer gar nicht so vorstellen, aber da war unheimlich was los und es wurde sich an vielen Punkten auch beteiligt. Dafür also auch ganz, ganz, ganz dickes Dankeschön.
Und an alle, die hier sind und vielleicht noch ein paar Tage hier auf der Gamescom verbringen, viel Spaß beim Zocken und Entdecken. Es ist wieder soweit. Ist das nicht geil? Da können wir uns doch mal drüber freuen.
Ja, ich freue mich sehr. Ich werde sehr zocken.
Geil, ich auch. Ich auch. Alles klar, wir sehen uns im nächsten Jahr wieder. Macht's gut.
Bis dahin. Tschüss.
Tschüss.